Okay, everybody, welcome to the special council meeting, Monday, August 8th, to go over the budget. Turn it over to you, Mike.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've got some housekeeping things to take care of first, one of which is item number 2. I just got this morning about 11:15, 11:30, the signed version of the MNP labor contract. This group negotiated that contract. So the way this works is we have the union sign first. The business agent for the union signs first, which was Joe Ditch. The union steward signed it this morning, which is Eric Lee. The city would be the next to sign. And then Jessica, our business agent for the city, would review everything and make sure everything is what you had agreed to and sign off, and then we're done. So you have a copy in front of you of that, which is the final product. If you want to look at that now, you can, or if you want to push that off till tonight, you can do that too. It's really up to you.
I'd like to push it off to tonight.
Okay, if there's nothing new in there that you don't already know. So. Okay. Yep.
Review it, that's all.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll go down to 2B. Now, we're talking about the Teamsters now, and we've had some challenges with staffing. I think everybody knows that. So one of the things that you want to consider is, now that we're into 2022, we've got a signed contract, and we're seeing some challenges with where we compare to others, staffing issues, etc. So what we're asking is a permission request to review with the staff placement of the staff that we negotiated, just settled. And the reason you would do that is you wouldn't talk directly to the business agent without asking permission. I think, Aaron, you're aware of some of the challenges we have here. We talked about it at the Public Safety Committee. So staff is asking permission to engage our business agent, which is Jessica, to have a discussion with Les Kundo at the Teamsters about that very issue.
Is there a possibility we can discuss it, Mike, and have the concepts in place? So if we get a nod yes from Jessica and the Teamsters, it can take place, because if I remember, whenever it goes into effect forward. It doesn't go back.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So the union contract doesn't go back to January 1st?
That goes back, but any adjustment that we make at this point would go from, if we did it today, it would go from today forward, not all the way back to January 1.
But we just got done with negotiations. Why would we be making an adjustment now?
And the short story here is staff is not asking for any changes to the contract or the salary schedule. They're just looking to review where current staff are with their qualifications so we can remain competitive. Is that a fair statement, Eric?
Weren't they all happy when we went through the negotiations on the contract? Everybody was happy, the placement, the union rep, everybody was happy, so I don't know why we're looking at it again.
Well, because there's
So
a
quickly.
request to do so, that's why. And so instead of just doing that without council permission, because the council was the negotiating team, remember? And so you typically wouldn't unilaterally start looking at those things without permission. You would engage the business agent.
Well, I think the council should be part of that negotiation or that conversation. So we don't know, I don't know what you guys are going to talk about.
Do you want to address that, Aaron?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't bring them with me. Did you? What they're talking about is taking the 3 existing officers we have left and adjusting within the pay schedule that is there right now that we negotiated. So there's no new negotiation within that raising the schedule. Do you see what I'm saying? Oh, thank you.
But,
I appreciate this, Jim.
but
I should, and I had it laying out too. Yeah.
in the negotiations, during the union contract negotiations, they were placed differently
Yeah. I
already.
agree.
I mean, we already went through that.
After our interview with Adam, I mean, it became painfully obvious that we're behind. We're way behind. I mean, when he can get $6 an hour walking out one door into another door with no additional experience or anything else, and we've just paid all hundreds and hundreds of dollars to train him and get him there, and now we give him to another agency to benefit from.
I thought he was all trained when he came, except for maybe on-the-job training.
That first year is a huge, when you're full-time, is huge.
So at this point, we're not asking for you to accept what's being recommended. We're asking to have that discussion between the two business agents.
And everything that was talked about at the safety committee was within what the contract is today.
I realize that, but at the time, just like the other unions, we addressed, and the union representatives addressed what they wanted for a union contract. We did a market adjustment on the one. I mean, at that time, they should have known that the market wasn't correct.
They should have, I agree with you on that, 100%. But the people that were doing it didn't do it. And I don't think they did their people
Well,
justice. Let me
we-
just put it that way.
Yeah.
So I think we do need to review it. I think we need to look at it
Well, I think the city council's got to be involved.
and work forward with it versus taking a gamble at losing another young officer.
So you're mentioning 3 officers excluding the chief and the sergeant, I'm
Correct,
assuming?
correct.
So I would recommend doing this. The only change I would recommend is before you talk to any business agent, you come back to the council and talk to us first, and then there will be no, why did you talk to us?
Yep.
You know, so we don't plant any seeds before we need to. So we understand, and it's okay, otherwise, I did talk to Mike about this, and, you know, it might be, they may think this is a negotiation again. And
No.
We don't want it to be that way.
Correct.
We don't want to be that.
I-
We want to
Yeah.
stay in control.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, we need to cut that gap down to some degree that it's not so beneficial. $6 an hour to a young officer is a lot of
A lot
money.
of money, yeah.
So it's going to entice them away.
That
And
was a
with
good
the-
report you guys did.
And especially with the county offering the bounties that they're offering for these young officers. I heard up to $5,000. That's what I heard.
Yeah, the county is giving a $5,000 signing bonus. I'm not sure of I know they've got the hiring incentive, but I'm not sure about the recruitment. I haven't heard anything about that or been able to confirm any of that.
See, I thought that's what it was the recruitment. That's what we thought.
Was
That's what it
referring
was.
to it too, but
He
we
didn't
could
say-
be wrong. It doesn't mean we heard it correctly.
Yeah, he didn't say signing bonus. He said that they were doing recruitment and paying for,
But he didn't go with the county for some reason, and I'm sure he could have to get that bonus, but he chose to go to Baxter.
So as Mr. Schrupp was saying, I mean, I agree with him, except that I think you guys should put your thoughts together and we'll have a workshop or something and let's discuss it here and kind
Yes.
of come into agreement on what you're thinking about doing, and then go to the union?
yes, there shouldn't be any discussion with the union until we agree.
Well, I question whether we have to go to the union or not either, but
Well, let's
I
talk
think
about
I
that
agree
for
with,
a
I agree with
second.
you on the fact that we do need to, if we're not in agreement with what we're talking about increases to be, then it's futile, it's crazy to go to the union first.
Yeah, so here's how that should work. We have a collective bargaining agreement, and you wouldn't want to open yourselves up to going to the union or any collective bargaining agreement and say unilaterally, hey, here's what we're thinking of doing, what do you think? Without first, as a council, saying, we have an issue we want to address, we want to make sure that we're engaging in the collective bargaining process to address that issue together instead of singularly on one side, and engage the business agent with ours to have that discussion. And so I think at the last Public Safety Committee, there was a very lengthy discussion on that with some proposed adjustments that would get us to where the chief feels we need to be. But what we didn't want to do is go to the union without the council's permission first to engage in a bilateral discussion under a collective bargaining agreement to take risk off the table because the union might have a different position where they want to be. So you'd want to first engage in that discussion and say, hey, we're recognizing we might have an issue. What are you thinking? That's where the negotiation would take place. But you first have permission as a group to allow our respective representatives to do that. And that's what we're asking for here. So the way this would work is if you're agreeable to having that discussion, we would engage our business agent, if you will, which is Jessica, to reach out to the Teamsters business agent, which is Les Kundo, say, hey, what do you think of this issue and what would you accept that I can recommend for negotiation with my council?
You know, I don't know, having been involved early in my career, and we've talked about this, but Mike's got some data on what other cities are
Yeah,
paying, and I think that needs to be shared here because we
Sure.
are underpaying some of these people.
yeah, there's differences that we
Right.
should,
We need to have some explanation that says this is why. And I understand $6 an hour has been mentioned, but when you really think about it, it hasn't been verified. But,
Well, that'd be easy to do, though.
you know,
yeah. And I've got
So-
some information on that.
right. But I would just think that if Eric and you and whoever put together a recommendation and then we agree to it,
Sure.
I would think you just want to bring in the union and say, oh, by the way, we're going to bump these guys up to these levels, period.
I think
You don't have to use the word negotiating.
the $6 or whatever that might be is part of the issue, but housing is another part of the issue.
Yes, oh, yeah.
So maybe the city should look a little broader and, you know, housing is an issue all over the place.
Right, the only issue we're addressing here is requesting permission to engage the union.
Right,
I mean, housing, we could spend the rest of the week here and not solve that problem.
right.
No, but that's a big part of the problem as far as retention goes.
Sure. One of the issues, yep,
Yeah,
I agree.
that's one of them.
So do we have permission to do that or not?
Yeah.
And I think whatever recommendation Eric comes up with, you'd want to agree to that as a strategic session, closed likely.
It's got to come before the city council before you go to the union. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I'd like.
Right, and that's what we're asking for permission to do, is to start that discussion.
Yeah, I'd like it to come to us so we know what you're talking about, but yeah.
So that's my motion. You make a recommendation, close meeting with the council,
To review.
Yep.
review what you're doing, and then,
Okay, do you have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All in favor?
Okay, let's go to item
Can
C.
I ask a question one more?
Sure.
When?
We could have that tonight, Eric?
That'd be fine with me, whatever works for
Okay,
the
well, after
council.
this meeting and between the next one, Eric and I will get together and
Okay.
figure it out.
So following this meeting? Okay.
Right.
I do have a 3 o'clock meeting with the county attorney's office this afternoon, so
We'll do it as soon as humanly possible, all right?
We're not going to discuss it at the meeting tonight, though.
could have a closed meeting at the end.
We could have a closed meeting at the end of this to do that.
No, let's wait and
Let's
do it
not.
later. Shar doesn't want to have a closed meeting. No. No, she wants to cut
Oh.
this short. She's got a
You
big
don't
day
want to be here
tomorrow.
at 6 o'clock in the morning till midnight?
That'll be tomorrow for Shar. She's got a primary election tomorrow, so she'll be at the county till midnight tomorrow. So, all right, let's move on to item C. AFSMI. This has been going on for a little while, and we've been asking, let's give you some background here. When we negotiated the AFSMI contract, we identified basically step-up pay and premium pay for individuals that reach certain levels within that department, whether it's whatever license you had. we were trying to show that we were trying to build our bench, we're trying to build our team, and have staffing levels such that we had redundant backup and stuff like that. At the time, we didn't have a public works director that left, and we were finding a public works director that we just recently hired. So one of the things that came out after we did that was we didn't address the issue of, and this didn't come up during negotiations, we didn't address the issue of do we need or do we not need a lead operator type, wastewater operator type position in that department. So what the union has come to us, to Jessica, and said, hey, we think we're requesting a position to be added to the current contract called lead wastewater operator, heavy equipment operator. And we're specifically talking about Nate in that. And so the union's bringing this request forward because they're saying, wait a second, if you're going to run the plant under Nate's license and do all the things that lead wastewater operator would do, we think there's value in that, and we're asking for you to change the position. In a lot of other entities, comparable, you would have like a foreman or a lead person. And what this is doing, and it makes, I think, personally, I think this makes a lot of sense because you've got an individual who, the wastewater plant's his baby. That's what he does. That's what makes this guy tick. It also allows your public works director to be a backup to that license and act in a supervisory capacity to spend his time where we need him instead of in the plant the whole time.
Is Patrick got a license?
Yes, he does.
Yes.
He has a license. He's also responsible for the roads.
He's got a B license.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do they want to get rid of premium pay then and add a class? That's
They're requesting.
the same thing, premium
No,
pay,
well,
class.
it is not. They're different
Well,
things.
it is to me.
Well, they're different, and let me explain why. Premium pay is based on the license that you have. This is based on identifying a qualified individual and solidifying your position in the sewer plant to keep another person there.
So are you saying you're going to give, he would be allowed to have premium pay for his Class B, plus get a new job class with a higher rate? How much can you expect from the city? I don't know.
Well, I'm not expecting anything. I'm
Well,
expecting you to
okay.
consider it and discuss it, because this is the request coming forth from
I'm
the
just
union.
saying, I'm saying this to the city council. We did good faith by giving them premium pay, an additional $4 an hour, and now they come back. It's amazing to me that the union can talk after the fact the contract is signed, but the city can't. So I'm not for this unless they give up the premium pay.
Well, let's talk about that comment for a minute. The union is making a request with they have every right to do. They're asking for a change to the contract, which would be the addition of a new position, because they're recognizing how we're using that individual. The issue we have not addressed is identifying a person to be the lead person in that department, where the majority of that person's time is spent making sure the plant's running correctly instead of rotating people that don't have licenses in that plant. So the license is one issue, and the reason we put the license in place, saying if you get your license, we'll pay you a little extra for it because you're more qualified. What they're asking for a lead position here is to recognize that we have a person whose primary function in their job is to stay in the plant and make sure it runs. The risk,
Didn't we talk about all this during our negotiations?
we
That's why-
did talk about this, and we did not address the issue of lead. We addressed the issue of if you have a license, which whatever your profession is, it doesn't matter. If you're a doctor, a builder, an attorney, a CPA, if you don't have a license, you're not as valuable. So we
I know, but-
recognize the value of having that license. What this is asking, the union is asking is, we want the city to recognize the position of lead wastewater operator, that his secondary or third function would be to work in public, drive a plow truck or run a crane. So they're asking the council to consider that, and their request is to create the lead wastewater operator, heavy equipment operator position, and recognize the value of that. That's what they're asking.
So is there a pay increase involved with this down the road?
They're asking to be placed at $2 higher than the wastewater operator, heavy equipment operator.
So you're at $6 for premium pay.
No, it's $2
They're two
for
different
lead
things.
pay.
Well-
He's a supervisor. This is common. I've seen it in every union contract at a company that I worked at. He will now be a supervisor, and those other guys that work in the plant will have to answer to him, and he answers to Patrick. I mean, this is,
And that's
But
what we're
isn't that
saying.
why we hired Patrick? He had the Class B license. He's the supervisor.
I think we hired him because he qualified for the job, not just for that.
Well,
Well-
the issue here is, do you want Patrick to spend 100% of his time in the plant? And I think the answer to that's no.
So you have to have someone man that plant 24 hours a day? Is that what you're saying?
No, he didn't say that.
I didn't say that. What I
Well,
said is
you're
you
saying they
have,
have to stay in there, and I don't know why they would have to stay in there if they check the things and it's working. There's alarms. They would be contacted the minute there was something.
well, I'm not a wastewater plant operator, and I
Well, I'm
can't
just
answer
saying that
question.
if there was something wrong at the plant, the alarms would go off and
Right.
they'd be notified. They could be out doing streets or anything else in the parks, whatever, and they would get a notice on their phone that there's a problem at the plant, and they would go.
And we do that today.
Okay.
We also have call-out pay for the individuals, so after hours, they can manage that. So, again, what the union's request is to create the position of lead wastewater operator, heavy equipment operator. And the way the union is envisioning that item is Nate, the person we have, that's his primary function to be in the plant. Whether it's 8 hours that day, because that happens, or 6 hours, and his secondary function is to be a heavy equipment operator. That's what they're asking us to consider.
Mike, is this going to carry over the lead supervisory, however you want to term it? Is this going to carry over when Nate is out plowing snow and doing, public works functions, which he'll still have to
Yep.
do? So it will carry over where he's the supervisor, if he's selected.
Only with respect to wastewater, that's it.
But his pay will stay the same. I mean, if he gets a $2 bump, he gets it plowing, he gets it wherever it is.
Yep,
Yes, yeah, okay.
just like he does for his license.
And the union is not going to come back asking for a second lead in the other area?
I can't speak to what they would do. I wouldn't expect it. Sewers are unique,
Yeah. No, I understand that.
yeah.
That's
I
the
mean, I
critical.
think we all recognize that.
It just seems odd to me that we just spent all this time on union negotiations, and now here we are a month later, so coming back and revisiting them.
Well, again-
The only way I think I would look at it is if we got rid of premium pay and gave him the lead wastewater operator position and get rid of that premium pay for Class C, Class B, and just be done with it and pay him for supervisory at the wastewater plant under this new job class. But we probably can't do that because we've already approved that union contract with premium pay. We can't take that away. So why would you add something? I think this is something for when we renew the union contract in 2 years, or 2.5 years, whatever it is. And it's a 3-year contract. That's when we should consider it, not now.
Or give Nate 6 months to a year to make sure everything settles in and it's working good and he's reacting to his promotion and, then maybe give him a carrot. But to come right out of the gate and do it, it's a little,
That does raise a secondary question. Does that move him then, if he's supervisor, to a different union?
No, it does not. This is a lead worker. It doesn't mean he's supervisor, it means he's the lead person, and that's his primary responsibility.
Right.
So the two other staff that work in there, they would be secondary to that and follow Nate's lead with the plant. Eric's got his finger on the button.
But Patrick would go to Nate for all the, right. He doesn't have to go to
Oh, wait.
everybody else and talk. It's one guy, he has more responsibility.
But Pat is over Nate in the wastewater.
This would be like in your business, Dave, if you've got a bunch of carpenters, you probably have one.
Go-to guy?
Yeah, call him a go-to guy. Go-to pay. If something gets built wrong, he's the guy that's in trouble, so.
Mayor, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
You know, obviously, the negotiations are done for this year for the 3 contracts, but during that negotiation phase, none of the department heads were ever having any discussion regarding their people, and we might not be having this discussion now had we had that input prior to negotiating with the AFSCME and
You didn't
Teamsters.
talk to your union rep? They didn't
sorry?
talk to their union rep?
The union rep doesn't run the department and doesn't have a finger on the department.
But wouldn't they talk to the department?
The department head is the one who runs that department, and
In-
I
in-
feel it's your responsibility to include our input and whether or not, I mean, whether they negotiated, whatever they negotiated, the department head wasn't able to say, this is what I see for the future. Here are the retainage, recruitment issues that we're having. I mean, none of that was discussed with us. So, I mean, we might not be going through this if we had that platform. Just a suggestion.
Well, that's true, but you talked to your union rep through that, you just didn't address the council directly, or the department heads, I'm saying. And was Ted here at the time when we did the negotiations for them? He was
He
gone?
was here for part of it.
Yeah.
Well, this would be done prior to negotiating. Obviously, as, you know, a department head sees what's coming up in front
Well,
of them.
we talked about retention, we talked about what we have to do through the negotiations, and we adjusted
Well,
to
you guys
that.
did, but what do you know about the police department? What do you know about the public works or parks or fire or, I mean, that's why you have us here.
Well, I know, but I can't believe we didn't, you didn't.
Discuss with us?
Weren't part of that conversation.
I missed the email invitation then, I guess, I don't know.
Huh, okay.
Department heads were never asked that I'm aware of to come and talk about their departments and what their needs and what they feel. But right now, we need to, we're talking about wastewater.
Okay, well,
Let's table that action and quit discussing it and move on to 2023 budget.
Okay, so when are we tabling it to? Because we need to respond to the union. We have an open
To
request from the
consider
union.
adding a new job class.
Right, and that's
lead.
what we're asking, but when are we tabling it to?
could I just,
Discussion, or any more discussion on it?
Marcia, could I reword that?
You can make it if you want to.
I'm sorry, could you clarify that? Are you saying table it to another meeting, or at what date or what time? Because we do have to respond to the union.
I would
Another date
say,
and time. Go ahead.
yeah, let me just throw this out. I would make a motion to delay it for 6 months and put Nate kind of as he's on probation, because he just was promoted to that position, and take a look at it in 6 months.
He didn't have any promotion. There was no promotion. What the council did was put a value on the license he currently had.
And
That's
put-
what we did,
So you would need to give them the $2 an hour
right.
and.
You'd create the position and pay
put them on
accordingly.
probation for 6
Didn't we
months.
give him $4 an hour for having a license, though?
What the union negotiated with the negotiating team, which was the council, was recognition for having a Class B license. And the concern at that time, my recollection of that concern was, we wanted to position ourselves as an entity to, number one, retain staff, so we had qualified individuals in the utility plant, should somebody leave, get sick, have an accident, and build some redundancy. We have that today with Nate being in the plant. I think all of you see the value in having the Public Works Director not spend all of his time in the plant. But if you don't, I mean, you can really do whatever you want, but at some point, we do have to respond to the union. And to table it without a decision date really doesn't do that.
So how many years has Nate been here now? 10, 11,
7? 7 or 8?
7 or 8? And has he done a good job for us in 7 or 8 years?
He has. He's our go-to guy in the plant.
Right, and
So-
he excelled to get the license or achieved the license,
Yep,
which he did.
which he did.
So, I think it's necessary to deal with this now. And I'm just gonna we're talking a $4,000 a year cost. At $2, you don't have to do $2. You can say, we agree with what you're doing and we'll give you $1.50 or $1.75. But I think it's a good move. It's not gonna cost us a lot of money and it rewards his service and hopefully it'll keep him here.
I support having a lead wastewater operator title, and the cost is minimal, and I think we're being penny wise and pound foolish if we argue a lot over this small amount.
I would like to see a little time trial, make sure that he does a good job and he is the guy.
But that's the 6 months probation.
And,
You
yeah,
can't
but
put-
we
you
don't
can't put
have
it-
that set
but
up
you-
now.
But you don't have,
We don't.
Well, he's really not on probation right
You
now.
can't put him on probation because he's already,
Past
You don't even
that,
have to call it a probation, but a 6-month review. I think we promoted him, or we acknowledged the fact that he is the operator. We gave him $4 an hour, plus the other raises that were involved. I don't understand why we didn't acknowledge the fact that he's gonna be the guy at the plant when we did that. Maybe we didn't give him a title, but he is the guy at the plant, and that's the way the whole negotiations went. And he got $4 an hour for having that license. The other two got, I think, $2 an hour, plus they got their cost of living and their step and all the other adjustments. There was quite a, no?
they didn't get, the others don't have their Class C yet. They get $2 an hour for Class C, which benefits the city zip.
the only person getting that added money is Nate.
Yep.
right now.
But I mean, that's why I don't get it. We did acknowledge the fact that he had his license.
Because let's just say it, we're stupid and we missed it. People miss things. We didn't think of it. To keep talking about why we missed it is wasting time here.
Exactly.
Our city's growing
No,
here.
the thing that is now we're giving them $2 more an hour. If we would have given them the title back there, the $4 would have been
We
good.
just didn't think of it.
He did, I'll tell you what
I'm not here
happened.
to answer
He
why we
didn't-
missed it.
He didn't need that title because they were going to apply
care.
for the position. They were going to apply for that position, and they didn't think they needed that title.
We only
That's
need
it.
one lead person right now. That's all they're asking for. Does Patrick support this? And you support it?
Yes.
All right, so. Make a motion. I'll make a motion that we go along with this thing, but I'll put the price or the cost per hour at $175, the increase in salary.
I second it.
Okay, any other discussion on it?
I still say that the premium pay is what occurred in the contract is the same thing as that lead wastewater operator thing, but
Yep.
that's here
The
nor there.
union's
That's
view of the-
discussion.
The union's view of the $4 to have the license was to encourage staff to get the license, to build our bench, to provide redundant services for the city and to maintain qualified staff.
Except that he already had the license.
The lead position person is to recognize a qualified individual, that's your go-to person. The primary role is to provide that function, so they're different, they're not
Right.
the same.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. For the sake of argument, opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-1.
Okay. So this could come back to us, right?
Yeah, they'll have to accept that. I'll work with Jessica to.
Yep, okay,
work
now
that.
what?
Okay, now we're gonna have some real fun. First thing we need to do is set our truth and taxation meeting, the time, the place, and what day it's going to be. And my suggestion would be, as we've done in the past, is to set that at 6 PM, December 12th, and that would be before our council meeting. on December 12th, which is the second Monday of December at City Hall here, and that would be the meeting when we've already had all the debate on the budget, and we're ready to take public comment and certify our final levy. So I'm suggesting December 12th, 6 PM here at City Hall.
I'm good with that.
Was it what happened last year? Did they get the time wrong? Or because last year we had the meeting and then we had to wait till the regular meeting to actually approve it?
Yep. We have the public hearing, it's called the truth and taxation part, where the public can come in and talk, and it's for the public to come in and provide comment to the council on what they like, what they don't like. The council can consider that, and then you could have the final approval at the budget.
The county sent out, it
Right.
was at 7:00 PM versus 6:00. And then we had to abide by that because that was the notice.
Right, but we could have done it at 6.
We could have done it at 6.
I mean, we don't have to wait till the regular meeting to approve it.
No, we don't.
Just make sure that the county's,
Because that
Accurate.
just screwed up the whole agenda.
Yeah. We can do it at 6.
When is the deadline for that, Mike, the final on our taxes?
End of December,
31st or something?
I believe so, yes. 30th. The 31st is a Saturday, so it'd be it's the 29th in the materials, which is a Thursday. If you don't want to do it, you won't know until that time if you're ready to
Right.
do that. In either case, it's after the election. I'm just suggesting you do it at the same day you have the meeting.
well, there's a time frame for the truth and taxation, when we can hold it. There's a time frame,
There is, yes.
yes. So as long as we're in that time frame.
Are we in it?
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion, we approve your recommendation.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item B under number 3. We've got, every year, the organizations we do business with that support the city in a lot of different functions send us information saying, are you going to support us this year? So you've seen these before, and in your packet is a request from the Initiative Foundation for continuing support to help them with their 2023 budget in the amount of $1,650. So if you want to do that, that's what we've done in the past. Now remember, we used the Initiative Foundation for a number of things, so we're actually ahead of the game. We've actually received more grant money back from them than we've given them in support. But before we ask you to approve that, I got a request from Jim Anderson, everyone knows Jim, and he came in last week and said, you know, I got a call from the Initiative Foundation, and they've got this innovative funding program where they've got available funds for us to do things to say how great Cross Lake is, why you should live here, what we've done to attract business. We've got all these projects going on, and he brought up things like we have a loon center coming in. We just built Whitefish at the Lakes, was a building project. We've got a number of road projects going on. There's a sidewalk project coming up. There's an intersection project coming up. And how do all those things fit together? And he's been working with, everyone remembers the Blue Zones group, the Cross Lakers, the EDA, all the different groups, and they're looking for a way to pull that message together and have the city be the leader to deliver that message on what's happening in Cross Lake. If you think about it, if you look at the level of investment people have made in our community in the last few years, you'd all really shake your head in disbelief on that number. What's going on with the parks? And so what he's looking for, he asked if the city would be interested in applying for a grant to talk about parks and open public places within the city and what those are, and to try to help tie all that together with a consistent message. And so I took a chance and I filled out the grant application because it was due Friday. There's no risk to us if you don't want to do that, and I asked Mr. Anderson, I said, what happens if they give us $5,000 and we figure out what to do with it and it costs $7,000? And he said, I'll find another revenue source. So I would wait until I think we'll get it. But when somebody calls you and says, we've got funding for a project that will really help you deliver your message, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So,
Would we hire a marketing firm to tell the story, write the story?
you would identify, you would define the project and define someone to help you deliver that message.
Do you think it'd go in there, is it monthly mailing? They have a magazine that they distribute. Initiative
yeah.
Foundation does, yeah.
It would go in there
It would
too.
go in there for starters, okay.
It'd be something that would be, I'm looking at it as, you'd say, hey, TJ, tell us what you did with the park. You're having a grand opening coming up soon. How are people investing in the park? And the people that are making those investments, and what are the amenities in the city, and where's one-stop shopping to find that message? To try to have a leader to deliver that message for more visionary type things.
So you're saying we should put that in our budget for next year?
Yeah, they could probably, you could probably get it done this year yet. So let's find out if we get it first. I mean, I think there's a very high chance of getting it. When someone calls you and says there's grant money available, you should apply for it.
So what you're saying,
That's a
though,
pretty big nod to apply for it.
you just filled out a grant application for $75. That's kind of the
Yep,
bottom line.
7,500.
7,500. That's the bottom line of what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I did. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, okay.
And I can get Mr. Anderson back in here to help him share that vision.
Can we tell more than just the parks?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
It's our
Not
message.
the,
It's our message.
yeah,
It's infrastructure and
yeah,
parks. and-
yeah, what we've been doing.
Yep. So, but anyways, the request before you, just above that, is to support the Initiative Foundation in the amount of $1,650 as we've done in the last several years. So if you have a motion and an action on that, I can send their confirmation back and say, my council approves supporting your organization to help you with your budget.
Is this business we should be taking care of in this budget meeting, or should it be waiting till the council meeting tonight?
It's a budget-related item for an expenditure within our budget,
For this year or for next year?
both, for next year. The Initiative Foundation is asking,
This is a budget meeting, and I'm looking at the fireworks and the chamber.
well, these are all expenditures for next year.
Oh, okay. So
And they're
this is all
asking
part of-
for a budget.
Yeah, they just happen to pop up and you're knocking
Yep.
them off, so.
Well, on 3B, I make a motion that we approve the Initiative Foundation donation and approve the grant application process.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, all in favor.
I'm-
Okay, so item 2 under that same area is a similar request from the Cross Lake Chamber of Commerce last year. And this was actually directed to you, Mr. Mayor, back in July 21st, requesting support for the operation of the Cross Lake Welcome Center for $3,500 for 2023. So when they would need to know that so they can adjust their budget accordingly. That's always good to know early.
And that's the same we did last year. so-
Yep, that's correct. Then they don't have to guess, and they don't have to wait till December.
I'll make a motion, we approve it.
Okay,
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All in favor.
we have the same issue with the annual fireworks, Celebrate America Cross Lake, which the chamber takes care of. They're asking for a commitment of $15,000 for the fireworks show for 2023. And that is a budget item in our current budget for next year. So I'd ask for council action and a motion to notify them. We'll
I'll
support
make a
that.
motion that we approve the annual fireworks, or included in the 2023 budget, $15,000 for the fireworks.
Second. Okay, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All in favor, sir.
Okay, now we're going to have some real fun. So, I'll just stand over now. And I'll explain to you what this is not the packet, so. So one of the questions I get from a lot of people is, how does Cross Lake stack up with our other communities in the county? And what every county is required to do is they're required to report to the Minnesota Department of Revenue certain information through what's called the PRISM system at the state. And this is a report generated from the state's website that's available to anyone that's got a phone with internet service, or a laptop computer or a desktop. And there's just a wealth of information out there. And so what I did is I looked at, what's Cross Lake worth? If we were saying, what's our assessment year, which is this year, what's the value? Now, there's a whole bunch of information out there that's really hard to use. So you can draw the wrong conclusions if you don't know what you're looking for. So if you go out there on your own, make sure you understand what you're looking for. Now, this report is current through last February of this year. There will be new information coming out this month. They're required to report by the, I think, middle of August, and these reports will be updated. I mean, when everyone got their property tax statements for next year, everyone gasped, took a deep breath and said, that's a lot, that's a huge increase. So I've highlighted the total market value for just the city of Cross Lake in Crow Wing County. And for 2023, the assessment year is 2022, so it'd be next year's taxes, what this relates to. If you remember back in 2021, we're at about 1.3 billion. 2022, we're at about 1.5 billion. Well, 2023, which is what will go on the tax rolls in January, 2.1 billion. That's a huge number. And so a lot of people called the county and said, my tax value shouldn't be that high, and they protested it. What usually takes the county just a part of a day to review this, they already had appointments going into 2 weeks. So the point is, this number will change. It's just a matter by how much. And my guess is it'll go down some, but it'll still be higher than it was last year. And it'll probably have a similar change to other communities in the county. So what I did on the far right-hand side is if you take the second and third number, these two, those total the 17,085. That's the estimated market value of the property in Crow Wing County. Look where Cross Lake lands. And look how we stack up against our peers.
Mike, why is Maple Grove in there?
It's a
Maple
township.
Grove? Oh, okay.
It's a township.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that.
Yep, same with Pelican, Deerwood Township, Center, Long Lake, Jenkins. They're all different townships. But when you get down, we get past the first 5 or 6, everyone's under $1 billion. But Cross Lake is twice that. So it kind of puts in perspective how valuable and what a wonderful place we live in. we can get the same information for how much tax each entity pays. The thing that's very misleading about that is it doesn't take into account things like local government aid, state highway aid, because some of the communities in our county get a substantial portion of their budget paid for in the form of local government aid. So while the numbers are high, their numbers would be higher tax-wise because of the state aid they get that's not reflected in these reports. So that's just information. You know, use it however you want. I'll update this again. And what I use this for is to try to figure out what a tax rate is. So if you think about the big picture, if the value of the pie went up, meaning the market value, and your taxes stayed about the same or went up just a little bit or less as a percent, your tax rate would go down or stay the same. So we don't have a tax rate problem in Cross Lake. We have a market value challenge, okay? So the other, just to lead off with that, now this is item 3. It's the summary sheet I've always provided you every year. And I've pointed out a change I've made to this schedule, and it's on the bottom, and I'll hand out a new one, show you what that means.
So this is one that isn't accurate. This isn't accurate?
That's what I just said.
I didn't.
Oh,
Here you go. That's all right. You want 2?
okay. So when I did this, that's why these are all drafts, because I'm trying to get a handle on what a high-level look of the city looks like. And this is kind of what it looks like. So what this represents from an operating standpoint, if you look just at what it takes to operate the system, the city, you know, to pay salaries and benefits, to pay power bills, to make copies in color for the council to look at, stuff like that, pay the phone bill, the heat bill, all of that stuff. We all saw what inflation was doing, which was, we've heard horror stories that it's 8%, 10%, 9%, whatever percent it is, hits everybody. Everybody knows it costs more to put gas in your car, costs more for insurance, costs more to pay the power bill. We're all seeing that at the grocery store. So I picked some middle ground, and that middle ground was about a 6% number, which is reflected here. And so some of the things we need to talk about is how did we compare to last year? And the change I had from last year was I had the 2021 levy in there instead of the 2022. It amounted to about $19,000. So if you look down here, what happened to our debt service levy? Big picture, we've got one bond that gets paid off in February. We'll talk about that later. So we've already levied for it, and it's for the Public Works facility. We've already levied for that. That money is already sitting in the general fund. We'll make the payment in February of 2023, and we'll bill the county for a portion of that. That's why the levy went down. Any new bonds that we issued this year, the first payment likely wouldn't take into effect until 2024, which means we would levy for that next year, in next year's cycle. So whatever bonds we ultimately issue when we figure out the assessments for road projects will change the number in 2024. So the debt levy actually goes down by the amount we would have levied to make the payment on the Public Works facility for next year, because we already have that. We're already collecting it. We'll do the same for the sewer side next year, because that one goes in 2024. So the idea is, between these two, you'll have some level of consistency with whatever we figure out for a levy for the bonds we have yet to issue this fall. So this assumes we're doing about $1 million of road stuff, whatever that is. It assumes that we're going to issue, if we do any road projects, we're going to issue about $700,000 of bonds to pay for it. What it does not address is how we're going to finance what Chip's going to talk about in a minute. And the big yellow number in the middle says, if you had to decide to do this plan and follow it dollar for dollar, you'd spend about $676,000 of your own money to make it work. Some of the, go ahead.
So are you increasing the budget expenditures by 6.25%? Is that what you're, is that
I'm
what
looking
you're?
at I'm just going like that and saying we've got the salary adjustments already in there, and what's left? It's all the other stuff we do that we spend money on. 6.25, yep. Overall budget, because we're lowering the debt service levy, because we don't need to make that final payment for the levy for it, because we're going to collect the second half. Overall, that's 3.31% compared to last year in this model. Now, some of the things we don't have is I don't know what our workers' comp insurance will be next year. I don't know what our liability insurance will be. I've got a rough estimate. We should have health insurance numbers sometime in September. So we'll guess at some of these things and then adjust them later. The point is, we want to make sure we guess or estimate high enough, so after we certify this levy, we can reduce it.
Okay, you said that the debt, the bond in February has already been levied for? Do you usually do that? You levy
Well, you always levy before you have to make the payment.
in the
They're staggered.
in the 2023? Wouldn't that be in the 2023 budget?
It is. It's already in there. So
In the-
remember last fall, okay, when you have a bond payment that's due in February, your final payment, you're not going to wait until,
Okay, so it
June
was
to get-
already levied for?
and we'll
The
have it.
February one, only the February one? Only
Right,
the February one?
The final one.
The final in a February payment?
What's your
Is that what
question?
you're saying?
What's your question?
My question is, we've already levied for this bond payment that's the final payment in February. We've already levied for that.
Right.
This year, right?
Do you always do that if it's only if it's a final payment and it's in February?
No, we do it for everyone, because you have to
Everyone?
generate the cash to make the payment. That's normal.
So what you're saying is we would not get levy money quick enough to pay it in February, so
Right.
you levy for it the previous year.
You only
Yep.
get that twice a year.
Yeah.
Use the reserve for.
So that money comes in June or end of May?
Comes in May and October. We get
October,
receipt
right.
of it in June
It doesn't come in
and November.
December or January?
Nope.
Yep.
And we follow the bond recommendation from the bond advisor when we set our levy. That's what we approved. That's what was
If it
approved
was due
back
in
in
February, then we have to
2010, I believe those were refunded. That's when that decision was made.
What about our new bond? Where are we with that?
We're on schedule for that too. So we haven't issued new bonds this year.
We haven't said how much we're issuing for.
That's correct, because we haven't decided how much we're going to assess for it.
Okay.
That's a decision that has to be made. That would be levied in 2023 for the first payment in 2024.
I thought there was a vote. Wasn't there a vote?
There was a vote to assess. There was no vote to assess what amount. We still have to have a public hearing and approve an assessment roll and certify it to the county. That has not occurred yet.
One of my concerns, Mike, and I realize I'm deviating from what you've got in front of us, okay? But our public works facilities, wastewater specifically, we end up in a negative number every year. And we take care of that out of the telephone company funds. Well, those funds are going down and down. And are we in a position now to levy for those so that it's a wash? We
Well-
levy for what we spend. on that facility.
Yeah, so to answer your question, so the way the sewer fund works is we try to keep operations flat. When the facility was set up, it was never set up with a rate structure to pay for itself. Normally what you would do, whether it's an electric utility, a sewer utility, a water utility, you would set rates such that it would pay for itself. That's called an enterprise fund or a revenue bond. Typically, electric does fine because those rates are regulated. You know, you're either buying your power from a distributor and passing it on. Not many cities generate their own power. They either buy it from a third party or they pass it through at their cost plus what's called line loss or an evap cost. Because it takes power to transmit power. So you're not gonna sell every piece of power you buy because it takes energy to transmit it. That's called line loss in the electric utility. Typically, sewer plants struggle to make money. Ours is stretched out so far. We don't have any high rises. We have one long road going from Whipple Drive all the way up to County Road 16 now, and there's not a lot of density on there. It's very expensive. Typically, cities subsidize to some extent their sewer plants with water sales. We don't have a water plant. The way ours was set up was to recognize that we need to do our best to cover costs in operating it, whether it's through collection of connection charges, operations, or just not having stuff break down. We're projecting it's going to take us $145,000 of our current year's levy to pay for that. That's a guess. Now, we could get new connection charges. We could be really efficient and nothing goes wrong, or it could go wrong. We just don't know yet until it happens. We also don't have a component in here for debt service. Right now, 100% of the bond payments we pay for sewer-related items are paid with general levy. It doesn't matter if you're on the system or not. The fact of the matter is, we don't generate enough cash through user fees to pay for the operations, debt service, and capital replacements of the plant. That's not new information. That's been true since it opened the doors in 2002.
But like Aaron made the statement that comes out of the telephone company funds,
It's coming out of our current year levy.
the general levy.
Yep.
So it's coming out of the general levy, but our telephone company funds get tapped at some point.
No,
Well, I think they do.
Well,
specifically they do, but not general.
not specifically. I mean, right now, there's about a little over $2 million left in there, and that has not been designated or assigned, if you will, for any other purpose.
Then on January 1, 2023, I want to see a line item that says telephone company funds. And I want to know what it's in, and so I can watch whether it stays static or goes down.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before, and I provided that to the council. But I can do it again, too.
I'll
Yep.
make that a motion right now.
I'll second it.
Yeah. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That all
Um,
carries.
And that gives you 5 months to get it together.
I have it right now.
Do I, am I right in assuming that the sewer revenue does cover operating, not capital, not debt, but
Barely.
it does cover it, right?
No, it does not.
If you take the sewer revenue and then subtract the expenditures?
We don't generate enough cash in the sewer fund to pay for its operation. It
Okay.
depends on what we collect for connection charges and how fast things break down. It's just that simple.
Right.
Some years we get really close, some years we don't.
Because I took the revenue and then I subtracted out the expenditures, added back in the capital outlay, and the debt service isn't there anyway, so, because the general fund takes care of that. I come out with, there's no deficit, but I might be looking at
Again,
something
that
wrong.
remains to be seen.
So you've projected another 25,000 in sewer charges for next year, probably based on
based on
The
new stuff
expansion.
we're
yeah,
coming. Yep.
yeah. So you went from 325 to 350.
Now, whether that's 325 or 370,
Is that with a rate increase?
Now,
that's
last
at the-
year, we budgeted $325,000 for sewer charges, the monthly fees, right?
Yep, that's correct.
And for
So-
23's bumped it up to 350, just to,
So that had a rate increase then?
no, that's because
That's
of
additional
volume.
use, because we're putting
Users.
additional volume on there. Remember, we're hooking up a car wash, a new convenience store, roughly 30 users. We don't know how much they're gonna use or not. And a very heavy user called Moonlight Bay. Right now, we're thinking they're gonna be about 10 connections, which would generate about $6,600 in revenue. The others would be $600 a year at $55, and that's how I came up with it. We'd have about somewhere around $20,000 of growth over last year. Whether that's 20 or 30, it all depends on the weather. So we're just trying to match that up. So one of the things we got to talk about is, I wanted to keep this really high level, and the reason I did that, because remember when we talked back in June, we were going to start this in July, and we traded out a July meeting for a discussion on housing. And so at that time, I asked, what do you folks want to see? Come in, see me, sit down, talk, show me what makes sense, what are your expectations? I haven't heard anything
Don't
from
the department heads come in and make a request, and we listen to the department heads? I'm not going to go out and look around the city and see what we need. You want us to ask the department heads, so I guess
No, I
we'd
don't
ask
want
the
you to ask the
department heads.
department heads. I want you
Well-
to share what your expectations are, and you haven't. So the department heads have made their requests, they're included in here. And in fact, so that's why I wanted to keep this high level. Were you comfortable with a 6% adjustment to the operating, or should be 10, or did you want it to go down 5%? No one said a word. But one of the things that did come up was at Public Works, we've had a number of discussions. So let's talk about that real quickly. The Public Works Commission, I think it's in your packet, it's item D, had made a recommendation to consider an adjustment in the budget for roads. One of the concerns that came up was, back in 2018, we had a really well-defined road plan. And then we didn't follow it. We made changes to it. We even had roads identified. The one that comes to mind was Big Pine Trail. We were set to do some work on that, and the concern at that time was, well, don't do it, the road's fine, I just drove it. What happens if the rock dam breaks, or all the trucks break it up? And so what we've asked our engineer to do is to work with Patrick to say which roads need the most attention, and let's focus on the ones we can still do something about. So one of the roads everyone has a question on is the one right behind us here that's been being used for the detour for the last few months. And Phil has been working on the engineer, which areas he would fix. But remember, that was one of the areas that was identified to extend sewer to in the future. So you wouldn't want to do a reclamation and then a few years later rip the road up and put a sewer in it. So he's got some numbers on that. His recommendation basically says, we've got a couple problem areas on that road where the detour is, and we should consider fixing them. One is the curve over here that's kind of broken up, some of the shoulders and that. And he's working on an estimate that he'll be willing to share with you really soon, I hope. And the plan would be to handle those repairs as a change order to the contract. And when the contractor is finalizing doing the last set of paving on the roads, to coordinate it with the contractor on a quantity basis addition to the existing contract to get it done before it snows this winter. So more to come on that. That was one of the ideas on that. The item C, or item E on that, is kind of a dissertation, what you've seen before, of where are we at with our capital outlay right now? And what does it look like going into next year? In fact, before I do that, I'm just going to throw this up here.
Say, Mike, can I ask a question? I wasn't at the last Public Works meeting. Did they talk about a list of roads? Oh, you were gone too.
Yeah, one of the
They
things
did
they
not.
talked about was, we've got some roads that need attention that we should look at and consider for next year. One was Harbor Lane, I think they were looking at.
That was the only,
That was the only one that came up. Now, we've had a couple other ones where people have said, hey, where's my road? on
I've
the
been
list?
asking for consideration up here, even possibly this year,
Yeah,
for this detour area.
Well, he just talked
Yep.
about that,
Yeah,
yeah,
but-
yeah.
yeah.
To
And
try to
we'll get back to
prepare.
you on that,
Yeah.
because we're
So-
trying to get some hard numbers
But
on it.
aren't we considering sewer in that area? Why would we redo the road why wouldn't we just patch it?
And that's what
versus-
I'm suggesting we do, I just
Yeah.
addressed that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to do the whole road and then tear it up. Yep, we would just want to fix the pieces we need.
Exactly.
What motions do we have to make here while he's gone?
He wants to hear this because he wants that road done.
Oh, all right, we'll make it as good as Wild Wind Ranch Drive was.
I'm just saying, isn't that part of where we're looking in the future for sewer? Why would we redo the road and then dig it up?
he just
Right.
said.
Right,
years.
and
That's
we
what
just
he said.
addressed that. We said we wouldn't do
Yeah.
that. We would prefer just to fix what we need to.
I know, I'm just commenting on Aaron's, this year.
He
just
didn't hear
said
all-
that. He just said that this year, that they're redoing it.
Mike is, I see when I've driven on the road there, that first bend to the right when you're into Old Law.
Oh, yeah.
The shoulders need to be fixed, and the rest of the roads seem to be okay. They're not very wide,
Yeah,
but they can fix all that.
Yeah.
My concern with asking about the Public Works is that usually by this time of the year, we've had some roads identified, nobody's identified anything.
No.
And I'm okay if we skip a year on roads and still levy so that the levy stays flat. and
So,
we
other than Harbor Lane,
there's
their
nothing.
recommendation, well, Phil's recommendation is to maintain roads, maintain
Overlays and.
overlays.
Yeah, okay.
And if a road is in really bad condition, wait for those people to petition to have it fixed.
Right.
So are we crack sealing?
yes, we
Yeah,
are.
We do that every year, yep.
We're
Well,
crack
I know we
sealing
do it
and
every
chip
year, but we
sealing.
haven't done it. are we going to crack seal?
Yes,
I
Do we
think
have a
should
contract?
shape a road to that list
yes.
to look at.
Do we have a contract
Yeah, you approved a contract with
Yeah,
Camco to do
we've
that
done, yeah.
already.
with the county? When are they going to do it?
They did it in May.
Camco was here in May and crack filled,
They already did it?
yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Just that.
We've already done that.
I think the one take-home, though, from Public Works was, we had been sort of putting aside around $800,000 per year for road maintenance.
Yep.
The take-home was that we really need to bump that up probably to about $1 million, not knowing specifically what we're going to do this year or next year, but that we need to put more money into maintenance so that we don't have to do as much in reclamation. Correct.
Yeah, and the other side of that too was, let's not decide what to do during budget time, what roads we're gonna do next year. Let's get back to following the plan we had set up, so people know what we're doing. Now, if you look out at the county's website, they have what they call the Highway Improvement Plan, and they follow that to a T. They go out 5 years or longer, and they say, here's the roads we're listing, here's when we're going to do them, and here's what's going to be done to those roads, and this is how we're paying for them. Now, we did that, but then we didn't follow it. So the plan we had in place in 2018
I
isn't
don't know,
valid.
that's why I asked
So
the question.
we know we're doing most likely Harbor Lane because they're working on it. They're working on getting the easements and the right-of-way.
And they don't have all those easements, so if we don't get them, that road won't probably get done
But
next year.
I think what I'd like to see is we do not, we leave money in there to pay for these roads, and if we don't do it, we just bankroll that money so that the next year, if we do it, we have it there.
Well,
Otherwise, your levy's gonna go
No.
down and up, and the people.
not if you budget right, so you don't have to worry about that.
So, the other, I'll just go with one other comment about this. That your revenue number, Mike, where is it here?
Sure.
Your $3,700,000, is that number based on this value on this sheet? A guess that you calculated guess that you made?
It's based on what I needed to get 6% for operations.
Okay.
It wasn't based on any market value. So at this point, I can't tell you what our tax rate looks like.
Because the county's they're still messing around with,
Yeah, they should be done now. It's going to take them a while to get reported to the state, but I should have information.
But we're not levying by a tax rate, we're going to levy dollar-wise.
understand that.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
The other point I'm trying to make here, and the last comment I'll say, is that we don't have to make a final decision in September. We have till the end of the year. We just need to make a levy prediction that's
Prediction.
high enough, thank you, to cover things we don't know about. We can always lower it. We can't raise it. So we, and we continue to work right up until the end of November on what number we want. The longer we have, the more information we're going to have. So there's no point in trying to cram this all through in the next 30 days or less. I think we have another couple months to keep going on these meetings.
And we likely won't know what our health insurance adjustment is until after our September council meeting. That's just reality. But there's a lot of different numbers in here, and we're trying to hone those down as best we can and make sure, Patrick is going through the public works facility saying, hey, this is the space we use. It still makes sense for us to use this space. Is there space the county's not using that we should have? How does that impact our current contract? But before we get to the other items on here, I'd like to ask Chip to talk about, wake up first, his capital outlay sheet. It's the last page in your file.
Good afternoon. As you recall, maybe 2-3 months ago, I brought to your attention that we were planning on purchasing in our capital outlay. It was in our capital outlay to replace our tender for our Freightliner 2003 2,000-gallon tender pumper. This upcoming 2023, it's been in the capital outlay for 10, 12 years. That's why I wanted to remind everybody of this for 2023 a couple months ago. We had in the public safety meeting, Council Herzog has my sheet, so if you would read that, if you could read that. 'Cause
Oh, you
you're
want me to recap it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just let them know that the public safety's
Let me
decision
get
on
to
that.
where you are.
It'd be
here's
the
Chip.
first
At the
page.
top. Discuss the increase in volume of calls over the last 15 years, which is, went back to 2009 when a majority,
Go down to the highlighted.
well, I'm on, oh, here we go. Cross Lake Safety Commission recommends to the council to move forward with the purchase of a new tender pumper/pumper to replace the existing 2004 Freightliner tender and to declare the 2004 Freightliner tender pumper and the 1997 E1 engine as surplus equipment. So you would be getting rid of two pieces, buying one. Am I correct?
Correct. So the new truck we're looking at is an actual 3,000-gallon tender rather than 2,000 because of our biggest question with ISO is water supply, because we don't have municipal water supply. So it's always been on our attention to get a bigger water tender, so we have more water on scene in the first 5 minutes, which is crucial for the fire flow rate with our large buildings. So to get more water to the scene right away is important. Again, it'll be a crew cab and with an engine, and if we need the engine, it's there. So prices of chassis have gone through the roof. A two-door Freightliner costs $120,000 just for the chassis now. The used market is really high right now, so I think if I were to sell tender 4 and engine 2, we would probably get about 125,000 for both of them, which would bring down the total cost of the new truck. People have heard that they knew that it's been in my capital outlay. A lot of fire departments have been calling me, even though I'm not advertising it, and saying, hey, you're gonna sell that, you're gonna sell that, so. Because they know it's hard to get a chassis right now, and they're very expensive. Bring that into effect, if we push this off a year or two, we're gonna spend 200 grand more, 250 grand more if we wait.
So we're looking at, instead of 600,000 when you get the return, we're looking at
450.
475?
Yeah, 450. I'm guessing about 450,
415.
yeah.
I think Cross Lake should do this.
How long is it gonna last? 20-plus years?
Yeah, it's a 20-year truck. So we wouldn't be purchasing a large apparatus again until 2033.
I think we should wait till 2024, when we have some debt go off.
Why would you do that?
Because we're gonna add $200,000 to our debt.
I may say the truck will cost about $60,000 to $70,000 minimum more in 2024.
Last year you budgeted 500. Last year you were talking.
Right, and that's how high the prices have increased. I didn't guesstimate
When
high
is the
enough.
ladder truck gonna be paid off? How long is that put up?
4 more years? 3 or 4
Keep
years?
in mind, and I don't remember the years, but between 23 and, what is it, 33?
Yeah, we don't buy a truck.
There's about 10 years there before we're buying any
Correct.
major equipment.
Correct.
Or planning for it.
Yep, correct.
And older vehicles, you increase maintenance also. I mean, it's not,
Right, we
I
just
mean, I
had.
think we ought to
pump-
do it while we can get it.
Correct, we just had pump testing on Monday, and we had some issues, so both those trucks had to get fixed. And I'm not sure what that cost is gonna be as of yet.
So to kind of put the debt side of this in perspective, I don't have any debt associated with this right now, but on that level of expenditure, that 130,000 down there on the bottom of the debt reduction for this year would likely go away, because we could still get this done this year and get a certificate issued to collateralize it. So that number would be 0, and you'd be at overall 6.24%. Then your debt levy would be the same as last year. You'd be trading out one bond for another one, is essentially what you'd do, if we could get it done this year. So Chip had mentioned, he was looking at 2023, and this is really wonderful to read, but you're looking at here and here. For the next two big expenditures, 2033 and 2035.
Nice work.
So last year, we spent 900 and something on a ladder truck, or 2 years ago? Was it 2 years?
Last year.
879.
I'm sorry?
2019, 879.
Yep.
2019?
Oh, no, the ladder truck we just purchased.
No.
You're right, 2020.
Last year, yeah, last year.
21, we ordered it in 2020. 21.
No,
It's right up
might
there.
have purchased it, but we didn't buy, we
Yeah,
didn't.
it's a 2021.
Waited a year for it.
21 on.
Okay.
I just think with, you know, with our levy and the debt service, I just think that there should not be a problem with waiting till 2024. Just stuck a lot of money into the fire hall. We bought a $900,000 ladder truck. I just don't see why we can't wait till 2024.
I don't see any problem with getting it now. Once again, longer maintenance, prices go up over time, and you're just kicking the can down the road.
Well, John, they told us engine 2 was nickel and diming them to death, and then we tried to sell it for surplus, and then it was a good truck.
I've always said it was going to be sold with surplus after we get another engine. I have to have a third engine, as ISO said.
I went back and watched the video, so I do know that, and in the budget, all the way through, it was to replace engine 2.
Well, that's past history. Let's,
It is to replace it. I never said I was going to get rid of it.
let's,
It's a reserve engine. It will be gone now that I have another engine that's rated at 1,500 gallons per minute.
I guess at
And if
this
you'd like to
point-
sit in on my ISO meetings and listen to them, it would scare you.
Oh, yeah.
If we don't get the equipment, that our rates are going to go higher, which is going to cost you more with your insurance, especially the businesses, if we don't keep up our
And
equipment.
that's the part we have to trust.
And you guys, yeah,
Chip.
if you don't
How,
want to.
how often do you have an ISO, every 5, 7 years?
It's 5 years now, it used to be every 10 years, and I just had the review last week, or 2 weeks
Okay.
ago. And they said you need more water, and you're good on this equipment, because if you didn't have this, and if you didn't have the ladder, we would have went up.
So did you get a letter reflecting that we needed a
They're not
bigger
going to tell you
pumper?
what you need, they'll give you the points
Oh.
on everything, but I have an email that says if I get the new tender I can use it as a tender or an engine, and it gives me 100 more points. It's not going to get me to a 5, but it holds me at a 6, because we're at a 6 without hydrants, which is very good.
Because usually after an ISO, you get an
I'll get the
inspection
packet as
sheet
soon as
and a
it's done.
recommendation.
They don't give you a recommendation they tell you what your points are in every
Where
area.
you're lacking.
Correct. That's a point system, and we get a big packet. They're just finishing it up, and I'll get it, as soon as I get it, I present it to the council, and I put a memo out to the city.
And as Chip said, it's the businesses that really benefit from having an ISO that's a good number.
Right.
Homeowners somewhat, but the businesses are
And you have to recall,
key.
this truck is the one truck that's on the road all the time, because mutual aid, it's hauling water, and we do not have a municipal water supply. Remember that.
If
When
this
we
were
put the
dis-
sewer in, we
Yeah.
didn't put in water.
This were decision about buying a lawnmower that costs $20,000, that's one thing, but this is a public safety piece of equipment that we've had for years, and I trust Chip's request here that it's accurate, that it is needed. I'm not going to second guess a public safety item. That's
I mean, if you
crazy.
wait, if you decide to wait, it's going to cost a lot more. So if I'm not here, whoever comes in and says it's going to be this much more money, and the drop in price of the tender 4 and the engine go down, now you're paying $600,000. So now you're going to be $250,000 more.
The thing is,
Another way to-
I think it needs to be left in for today, because today isn't the final discussion on anything.
Sure. One of the things we need to think
And-
about too
But I
is.
think it needs to be left in here
Yep.
and addressed, probably at a later date, but we need to keep it in.
Hang on a second. So one of the things you need to think about too is y'all have a house. Most of you live in your house, you own it, you pay insurance. What happens, and Marcia, you know this too, what happens in the insurance industry is when you pay your premium on your homeowner's insurance, all the insurance companies report what type of insurance they charged everybody. And they report that information to the Commissioner of Revenue. And on a lagging basis, the Commissioner of Revenue figures out how much money went to pay for homeowners insurance that was to cover fire. And part of that fire rate that you pay for protection of your home, when you pay your insurance for fire protection, they ask questions like, and Char, you've seen this too, a realtor calls and says, how far is it from the fire hall? Do you have a water system? What's the rating of the fire department? Is there a mutual aid agreement? So if you look at the big picture, you're going to pay for it one way or another, whether on a delayed basis on the premium you paid that it's buried in, that you're paying your insurance company, or you're going to pay for it to maintain your rate or keep it as low as you can.
I get 5 calls a week from insurance companies, and the first thing they ask is, how much water do you have on scene in the first 5 minutes? Because we don't have hydrants. And I say, right now, I say 7,000.
I think we need to leave it in there for now. Understand that it'll be a discussion item again later on.
Okay, we can do that.
You want me to
The
talk
other
about
comment is
iPads?
there's over $2 billion worth of property value in the county, and we're it.
Drive
So
around.
we don't want to protect it. That's not the way I'm going.
I'm not saying that we don't need the vehicle. I'm just budgeting. Timing, yeah. I'm not saying we don't need the
I'm not
vehicle.
arguing with you.
Yeah,
I'm just
no,
saying,
I'm just saying,
this is, I think, a discussion we need to have, and then continuing when final decisions come. Okay?
Okay, so Chip's got some, so in this 9 pages of detail in there, that's the first pass after talking with department heads on what they're looking for their capital items for 2023. It's in the blue highlighted column at the right. The bottom number of that will match the number on my high-level summary of total capital outlay. A lot of things that can change that. One is the timing of the project at the plant. If we get that done before next year, we do. That's the one that got delayed because we couldn't get parts for it. So that's part of the bond issue we're looking at too. So,
Do you want me to finish my other stuff or no?
yeah, go have Chip finish his other stuff
Since I'm here.
on there.
So.
Which page are you on, Chip?
I'm on my fire on 3 of 9.
Okay.
Right? Is that, or where did you put my iPads? Or didn't you?
Computers,
Computers?
they're on the bottom of page 3.
Oh, yeah.
Of page what?
Oh, yeah, 10,000. Okay, so our iPads in our fire trucks, which have all our information, our active 911, how we respond, they were purchased over 7-8 years ago. So in my capital for 2023 is to purchase new iPads, similar to how Eric has computers. We just use iPads, so they're less expensive, and they last about 5 to 7 years, just like any other computer. So I had it in there, but Eric made a suggestion at the public safety meeting that I do have some leftover money from my levied 2022 budget that I have not spent, that we may be able to just, if I could get a council approval to purchase some that way. Just as you recall, we always save money or put money away for gear, $11,200, or basically $17,000 a year for PPE for firefighters because we can't wear gear over 10 years old. We just purchased 3 sets and the bill was $6,800 for 2 sets. So I purchased 3, but I'm getting a grant for 2. So I submitted a grant for $7,000 that I'll be receiving to cover 2 sets of gear. So actually, I'm only going to be spending $3,000 as of right now for that $17,000 that is budgeted for this year. I've had some people retire, and I was able to reuse some gear this year. So I do have extra funding there. I have my hose testing and ladder testing next week, so I don't know about how much hose is going to fail. But I was wondering possibly I could use some of that funding that I'm not using for PPE to buy those iPads.
How much are the iPads, Chip?
I have a quote for $7,100 for the iPads, and then I need the mounts because they're different. You know, just like any phone, you can't buy a cover because they change them every year. So I have to get a Havis mount that goes on our post in our vehicle in the trucks.
And you have the 7,000?
In the budget, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
unspent,
Yeah,
designated funds for
Yeah.
other things that I'm not going to use. Yes, I have to reassign.
yeah.
So I don't know if we do that here, if we do that somewhere else, or
I
council
make
meeting.
a motion he be allowed to reassign and purchase the equipment.
I second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
And
Carried.
that's my only other major for capital. The only other thing I wanted to bring up is my truck, utility truck.
Yeah, talk about your
Okay,
truck and
so
how that
a few
turned
months
out.
back, we talked about a utility truck. We found one. You approved the wash where the Relief Association would write the city a check for the truck. The city would write the check for the truck from the vendor. When we went to do that, the truck was not what we were looking for. It was wrong because they had the wrong picture or whatever. We finally found a truck. We purchased it. I have the check from the Relief Association right here. 56,000 something, something, something. Was it 56,000 for 50, oh, no, sorry. Yeah, $56,342.55. The Relief Association is buying the truck. The full value or cost was $63,442.55, minus the sale of the Expedition that we declared surplus in the winter months. We got $7,100 in there. So 63,442 minus 7,100 is the 56,342.55. I also did get a Sourcewell grant for $10,000 that will pay for the lighting, bells and whistles, lighting and sirens, and, what else? Topper, slide-out unit, stuff like that.
And the slide-in unit.
So I got a grant for that. One other item is I applied for the Firehouse Subs grant.
That was like last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't remember when I did, April or something. We were looking to purchase battery-powered extrication tools. As of right now, we have the initial reply saying that we did receive the grant for $32,670. So that saves us a lot of money on equipment purchases in the future as well.
Impressive work.
Yay, Chip.
I've got a lot of grants in the last 5 years, so. So that's where we're at here. So my only big purchase now for next year would be, oh, the other thing is I didn't spend $5,000 on my Armor radios too. I'm short, $4,000.
Stop while you're ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, you mentioned it to me. They gave us, I don't know, I must have got a flash sale, but I thought they were gonna be 5,000 apiece, but we ended up spending 2,100 or 21,000 instead of 25. So there's $4,000 more that I won't be spending. So my biggest thing is the truck.
We need to accept your donation. No, we don't need to do anything.
Yeah, I haven't seen money.
Just
for
the
that.
water.
I'm just letting you know what's been going on with the grants and money and things like that.
We'll
That's
accept the donation through a resolution, though, right?
No,
It's a grant.
Sourcewell,
Yeah.
we don't have to do.
No, we don't have to do
We don't
that.
have to do resolutions
No.
anymore. Not from them.
Okay, got anything else? Okay,
Unless they
so,
want to talk about payroll.
Can we hopefully get you to get up and speak at public forum or something tonight and expound on recruitment for firefighting?
I'm sure.
Would you be willing to do that?
Just say, anybody want to be a firefighter? We're looking.
Okay, well, good place to advertise.
I mean, we're 47 calls ahead of last year. And last year we did 472 all time. So we're going to run over 500 calls easily. Last month we ran 64. That's an all-time record. And Eric did the same. Eric had the most calls ever in June, most calls ever in July. No, they're all over. Yeah. So it's very busy and the guys are getting burnt out and we'll have to, we talked about it in the public safety meeting, we might have to look at, we've talked about it before, but we're gonna have to look at a different model because it's just, even from my position, if when it was hired, say back in 2009, we run 180 calls, you gotta remember I have to do paperwork for 180 calls, 20 minutes a call. Now go to 474, go to 500 calls. Now I'm spending 22 hours a month doing paperwork.
Is there a charge for those calls that we could make?
No, we don't charge people. That would be wrong.
So in the past, we've talked about help for
Yep,
you.
I know Eric and I have talked about
And,
admin help or.
I'm kind of thinking we need to rethink that.
okay,
And
Or
would
in
that
other
help?
direction.
Would that help? Eric? Oh, he's gone. You have to be somebody that would.
I mean, there's different
Be
models.
willing to-
We've talked about it even like during the day. I mean, I'm sure some of the employers of my firefighters are getting sick of them running 3-4 times a day out of their workplace.
Yeah.
So there's other models to look at where you have a full-time chief, whether it's my tenure or somebody else coming in, runs all the calls during the day, does all the inspections, does all the maintenance, does all the paperwork, and then at night run the paid-on-call staff, unless it's a big fire. I mean, there's models all over, because I mean, you look at the math and you do 4 calls in the middle of the day, times 5 or 6 people at each call at $20 an hour, that's gonna pay a full-time chief salary for the week. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. So that's future discussion, I guess.
okay.
So how do we not let that go off the table? How do we,
Well, I know my guys are getting burnt out too.
right? It's time, the clock's ticking here, and, by the next time we get, is that something that everybody wants to look at?
I'm sorry, what?
We're talking about adding employees,
Oh, yeah.
or changing
I
some
think we need
titles.
to look at, I hate to use this word, but office staffing. I'm referring to data entry for the police to help out planning, zoning, help SHAR, and fire department doing, some data entry, at least minimum, till you recruit them to be a firefighter. And,
I am on the computer
but I
20
think we
hours
need
a
to do
week
some
easily.
staffing there. And I don't know, maybe Patrick's going to want to look at something for general for public works. I don't know. Because they're.
And
getting
right
short.
now,
Huh?
I'm helping, I'm doing that.
Yep.
So any help I get would help his
Would help
department
him as
too.
well.
Yeah, because we tag team a lot of that.
I know on the fire side of things, I can reach out to MinHire, which is part of the MSFDA, Minnesota Fire Department Association. They have some people that can come and look at your model, how you're doing things, and what would make it more cost benefit. Because basically, if paid on call and volunteer, usually 0 to 150 calls, or a little bit more. Once you get above 300, you need to start thinking about things. Once you get above 500, you need to change your model, or it's just not gonna work. I mean, I have a real job, and I'm putting in 40 hours a week here.
Well, I'm talking 40 hours here too. I'm not sure how they would split it out. But I know that there's a definite need in here for people answering phones, helping with this. Right now, we're down 2 police officers, and we're tying the chief down pretty much to the office.
I'm down to 20.
You're,
We had 7 calls
Went
this
from
weekend.
28 to 20?
I haven't had 28 people in,
You were authorized for 28.
yeah, I'm
But you haven't
authorized
filled
30.
30.
Right now, I have 22.
22 is what you're at, right?
22, and 2 of them, one of them works in the cities, one hasn't showed up for a call, he's probably gonna retire. So I have 2 that are actually gonna be done, so we're down to 20. And we run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just like last night, on a gas leak at midnight for 2 hours.
so, but I believe there is staffing need.
I agree
I'm
100%,
just
Aaron.
opening it up.
I agree 100%.
And it's not
we
just
need
here,
some help.
it's everywhere.
Right, yeah.
It's not just
Right,
here,
right.
it's everywhere.
Anything would help. So by,
And we're recruiting, we're on Facebook, we're on everywhere, we're advertising, and we've had 2 applications, one from Crosby and one here in Cross Lake. It's 4 months.
so how do we can the staff put together some labor
Go back
need?
to the mayor saying we need housing. We don't have any housing.
I mean, that's the bottom line to it.
I mean, I'm not gonna find a 28-year-old
Yeah.
small family moving to Cross Lake and wanting to be a firefighter.
Yeah,
Not
that
happening.
is really,
What Chip just described to you is the other side of this problem with valuation. From a market value perspective, we're just over 12% of the entire county with what we have here. So that's all good discussion, but we've been sitting here for a long time. So you've got some information on the capital outlay costs through July. Right there, we've had some good discussion on the roads, planning and communication process. For other items, we talked a little bit about the public works contract. Patrick is reviewing, the space needs what we need for that contract. They're starting work, I'm not sure where they're at with the replacing the columns in the wash bay. One thing that keeps coming up and coming up again is VRBOs. That's all very near and dear to all of us. One of the things, I know the county is looking at a company that had approached us to try to consolidate that and figure out the level of service. I have not talked to Land Services at the county if they've followed through with it or not, but that would be something we'd want to do. When it comes to other items, we talked a little bit about item C called right sizing. What is the optimal size staff model to provide the services our constituents are asking us to do? What does that look like? Does it mean a fire chief full-time? Does it mean something different? Does it mean changing how we do things, or not getting to things as quick as we should. So we need to think about that. A lot of other items, that's where, the group sitting in front of me says, I want you to consider this. Have you thought about that? But get me your thoughts, get me your questions. Tell me what you want to see. And emergency management system, things like that. What makes sense? What are you comfortable with? Those kind of questions. What doesn't make sense? Where are the holes? Where are the problems? And in the meantime, I'll continue to keep updating these as I get new information. You've got the MINP contract. The impact of that is reflected in the numbers we talked about earlier. So we're going to need to have another budget meeting. Remember last year we started this process on August 25th. We're on August 8th today, where we're getting a first pass at things. So I've thrown out a couple dates here under 5A and B, which might make sense to you. If those work or not, get back to Shar and we'll get a meeting set up.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
You
No.
ask whatever question you want.
Can I, Mayor? Okay. I have just something in 2022.
Okay?
Our budget transfer for that land, we had 65,000 additional out of general.
Right.
We found the 80,000, the 20, or the 32,000
Yeah.
from equipment, and then we had another 65. Is that going to be transferred to the sewer fund?
We've already made the paper transfer. We haven't paid the cash for the land yet.
I know that, but I mean, I didn't notice it in the financial statements this month that what, 65,000, was that,
I
so
believe
it's
that,
transferred, is it in the sewer fund under assigned balances, that 165,000, whatever the number is?
it
I'm
was
not-
never assigned in there. It was just put in there to pay for it.
Can we have that designated for land? I mean, that's what it's for. That's what we transferred it for. It's specifically for land.
Yep, I know what we transferred it for, and it's in there, and we break it out. It just makes our number bigger, what we have to transfer for cash to make it whole.
But in the fund balance,
Right.
the fund balance, you can break that out and make that,
Yeah, I can do that.
okay. And then the other thing is that I don't know if I got the acronym right, BWSR, the 315,000 or whatever it is. Did we get that yet,
No. we
that
did not.
grant? Is that a reimbursed grant or is that?
It's a reimbursable grant, and the way that worked is we're running several projects at once right now, and the idea was when we get to the point where we have enough cost to cover the grant, which after you approve tonight's expenditures, we'll be able to request reimbursement for that.
And we'll get that this year.
Yeah, we'll get it this year.
Okay, and that'll be transferred to, or put in the sewer fund then?
What we'll do is we'll take, no, it won't. What we'll do is, storm sewer is not a utility fund item for sewer. It's a general fund item.
So that is a storm sewer grant.
That's a storm sewer grant.
So where are you going to transfer that? Because in operating transfers, you have $564,077
Right.
to be transferred. Where would you transfer the storm sewer then, out of general?
We'd probably leave it in the general fund.
Okay, so then
It's
that's
a
not,
paper entry. And what we would do with the other money, the ARPA money, we would separately identify that to sewer, and we would transfer that from the general fund to the sewer fund for whatever that number was. Now, we did get the second half of that,
Yeah.
and right now it's sitting in deferred revenue on the balance sheet.
okay. So could I make a motion that we transfer the $249,000 to sewer, from general to sewer?
Yeah, you can do that, but it's actually 258.
Well, okay,
yeah.
258.
Whatever.
For what purpose, Marcia?
It's to pay for the
To pay
cost
for
of the
the
sewer
sewer.
project from the ARPA funds. And we'll report that as such next April, I think, is our reporting cycle. We do once a year on how we
But-
spend it.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
But that should be transferred to the sewer fund because that's what we're going to use it for.
Yep,
From the general?
that's just a paper item for us, so.
Aaron seconded
the
that.
reporting issue.
You second that, Eric?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor of that? Everybody
Aye.
get that?
That's
Aye.
Aye.
So can I make a request, going back to item 4C, the right-size staffing model?
Yeah,
Can
and
can we get you to work with the team and before our September 7th meeting, have that incorporated into your spreadsheets so we can see what that looks like?
yeah, we can do that.
So that would tell us a little more about what the levy amount needs to be?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, I can back into a number if I know what the what a
You know, what you
reasonable
want to
hourly
do,
rate
who you
is.
want to hire, how many you want to hire, or what, you know, that type of deal.
You know, and depending on what that looks like, we would have to figure out if we would have a person split between Teamsters and AFSCME, or what would that person look like? So we need to think about that.
Can you think about possibly part-time?
A contracted employee.
I'd prefer not to have a contracted employee. I'd like to have control over that person, right?
Well, if the,
I mean, you
What do
can
you-
call a temp agency right
see how
now and
many
get
hours
one
you can-
tomorrow if you want one.
They can be utilized, that's, I mean, that's your, spread it over 3 individuals, I heard.
but we don't have to pay benefits.
The problem with contracting with people, all of a sudden, they take another job and you're just sitting there.
Yeah.
And if they don't have somebody ready to go, you're screwed, and you've already developed a process and a,
Well, you can hire somebody and they can be gone too.
Well, I can keep busy doing reports, just 20
Yeah. You know, the other thing you need to think about too, in a
rating, doing my
environment where you have 3 bargaining units, you want to be really careful how you contract staff to do bargaining unit.
But I think that was
Work.
in the contracts that we could. That's a managerial right.
That's a managerial right.
But it's a
also-
managerial right.
But it's also a really touchy area, and you know that. When you have positions identified in a contract, in a bargaining unit that you contract out on a full-time, that creates problems.
Are you going to adjust the budget for wages? Because I'm sure that we did not budget for 2022 wages like we should have. Can we adjust those to the actual? What we're going to be paying? Because I think what we
I've
had in the
already looked
budget
at
was
20
maybe 3 or 4%. We clearly went way above that.
Well, we knew that answer after we did the budget too.
No, I'm talking about the 2022, adjust the budget. And I was wondering about the Pell contribution too.
And I
And then on the
also
other
talking
side
about
of
the
the
2022
Pell,
budget.
the Pell contribution would be the playground equipment, because we'll be over our budget in the Parks and Rec, because we did the playground equipment, so that would offset if you would adjust the budget for the Pell contributions and the expenditure for the playground equipment. I'll make that I'll make that a motion.
It nets to zero.
Why?
It's a reporting issue.
Doesn't the budget just stay the budget?
You can do budget adjustments.
Some
Trust
some
me, you
people
can.
adjust the budget every month.
revenue for the park.
Some never adjust it. Some companies adjust the budget weekly, some leave it like it is and say that's their guide and understand the differences. It's all
But
what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, but if somebody's looking at the budget, they're going to say, holy cow, you went way over your budget for
But you know,
Park
I
and
went
Rec.
over budget too, right?
You can
What?
explain it.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
why don't you just do the adjustment?
Question I've been asked in the past is, why are you way over and why didn't you know that when you did your budget? That's
Because-
what I've been asked in the past.
Well, you know what?
So-
We didn't know that Pell was going to contribute that much money to a playground
But
project.
it's, like Mike said, you can explain it, it's a good thing.
I know, but what's the,
It's,
what's the harm?
You learn from your budgeting. If you
Well-
keep changing it, you'll never know, you know?
Okay, so we're going to get some numbers for the 7th, right?
What's that?
We're going to get some salary staff numbers for the 7th, right?
Staff numbers for all departments, is that what you're saying?
Yep.
But could you just look at it seasonally, you know, what the call rating is in the winter compared to the summer?
I've got all that data, it's the same, it's that last couple of years after COVID, it's been flat. We had 55 calls in December last year, we had 54 in January. And then the ones you think are gonna be more, we're less, like May, or I think May we were low. it's not the normal big curve like we used to have. It's weird.
Oh, I do have one more.
We've also had a lot more people not traveling south and west and wherever. They've been staying home, which has added to our problems here.
Small Cities Assistance Program. Did we get any money from them this year? They didn't appropriate money? Oh, okay.
Are you done, Michael?
I'm done.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.